As you have asked whether my Thakur is in agreement with Shankaracharya's famous statement Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, which means that Brahma alone is real, the world is illusory. And you have also mentioned that my Thakur has criticized Shankaracharya's stance on this matter. And it is regarding this critique that you have sought to know my perspective, isn't it? Okay. Let me first recount the actual event as it transpired. There is a place in Dhaka. You know Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh? Okay. There is a place in Dhaka called Shamibag. My Thakur's maternal uncle, Herambona Torkotirtho, resided there. His house was at 53 Shamibag. Later, my Thakur purchased his own house nearby in the same locality. It was at 49 Shamibag, very near to his mama's house. The Volagiri ashram was also located in this neighborhood, and my Thakur would frequently visit its pond to take a bath during those days. On one occasion, a discussion took place at this Volagiri ashram. In attendance, alongside Herambanath, was the landlord Yogis Das. My Thakur's father, Surendra Chandra Chakraborty, was employed in the estate of the Rup Babu Rakhu Babu. Yogis Das was the proprietor of that estate during that time I am talking about. Okay? From my Thakur's audio recordings, it is found that Prafullo Chakraborty, a student of Herambona Torkotirtho, was also present during that discussion. Another person, an assistant priest of the Volagiri ashram named Gobindo, he was also present that day. Now, the discussion centered around Shankaracharya's philosophical doctrine of Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. During the conversation, my Thakur remarked, "Mama, আমি একটা কথা বলবো, একেবারে ডেডলক প্যাচ। শঙ্করাচার্য যে বলেছেন ব্রহ্ম সত্য জগৎ মিথ্যা, মিথ্যা থেকে যেটা বের হবে সেটা তো মিথ্যাই হবে। শঙ্করাচার্য তো জগতের থেকেই বেরিয়েছেন। তাহলে জগৎ যখন মিথ্যা, তখন শঙ্করাচার্য মিথ্যা, তার বলা কথা মিথ্যা। তাহলে তার বলা কথা ব্রহ্মসত্য জগৎ মিথ্যা আমি সত্য হিসাবে কিভাবে সত্য বলে গ্রহণ করব?" আমার কথায় এমন যুক্তি ছিল যে মামা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করতে বাধ্য হলেন যে, "ভাগনা, সত্যিই তুমি একদম ঠিক কথা বলেছ। আমার মামা বিশাল পণ্ডিত, এত বড় পণ্ডিত ভারতবর্ষে খুব কম এসেছে। সেই মামা আমার যুক্তি মেনে নিতে বাধ্য হলেন।" This was what Thakur said exactly that day. Put in English, this means, "Mama, may I present a counter argument?" Thakur says, "It is an absolute deadlock technique. Shankaracharya posits that Brahma is the sole truth and the world is an illusion. However, whatever originates from an illusion must inherently be illusory. Since Shankaracharya himself emerged from this world, if the world is an illusion, then Shankaracharya too is an illusion. Consequently, his words must also be an illusion. If that is so, how can I accept his proclamation that Brahma is real and the world is false as the absolute truth?" That my Thakur says that the logic inherent in my argument was so flawless and unassailable that Mama was compelled to concede. He admitted, "My dear Bhagna, you are absolutely right." My Mama, Thakur says, "My Mama was a scholar of immense stature. A mind of such profound erudition is a rarity in India. Yet even he was moved to accept the validity of my reasoning." This is exactly what my Thakur said that day. Okay? According to the recordings I have with me. Now, how did my Thakur come to know of these philosophical arguments? specifically the teachings of Shankaracharya. My Thakur had never read the texts written by Shankaracharya himself. Indeed, born into the highest echelons of spiritual consciousness, my Thakur never had any need to study the theories of this mundane world. It's true. From where then did he acquire this knowledge of Advaita and Dvaita Vedanta, or more specifically the statement Brahma Sattva Jagat Mithya? Then you may ask, my Thakur heard these philosophical discourses from his maternal uncle, Hirambanath Tarkotirtha. In my Thakur's eyes, Hirambanath was a scholar of immense stature, a view with which I am in absolute disagreement. Okay? Understood? I don't agree with Thakur on this point, that Hirambanath Tarkotirtha was a great scholar. To my mind, a true scholar is one who has genuinely realized and experienced the innermost essence of spiritual truth. Most of my Thakur's relatives, including Hirambanath Tarkotirtha, fall entirely short of this definition. They were essentially ritualistic priests who possessed a rudimentary knowledge of the Karmakanda, the ritualistic section of the Vedas. They studied it merely because the Karmakanda or the Purva-mimamsa contains the hymns and rituals required to conduct puja or worship, knowing a few of which allow one to practice priesthood. Understood? They were priests. It was their profession. It was how they earned their livelihood. Ironically, the very phenomenon my Thakur referred to as Dharmen Name Babsha, or the business of exploiting through religion, was precisely what his own relatives practiced. Furthermore, Shankaracharya belongs to the Advaita Vedanta school of thought, which posits that you yourself are the divine. If that philosophy is established, I mean to say the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, the entire structure of ritualistic worship then collapses. Isn't it? A priest, after all, is merely a middleman between you and God. Once you realize Aham Brahmasmi, I am the divine, the need for a priestly class ceases to exist. Therefore, it goes without saying that ritual priests like Hirambanath Tarkotirtha would harbor a natural, commercially driven distaste for Shankaracharya. For this very reason, people like Hirambanath Tarkotirtha and most of the other relatives of my Thakur disliked even Rabindranath Thakur as well, given Rabindranath's alignment with the Brahmo faith, which closely resonates with Advaita Vedanta. Their dislike for Rabindranath was so much that they considered Michael Madhusudan Datta to be a far greater poet than Rabindranath Tagore. So, that is the crux of the matter. That was my Thakur's perspective on Shankaracharya's philosophy of Brahma Sattva Jagat Mithya, an understanding he had gathered from his maternal uncle Hirambanath. Now, let us turn our attention to Shankaracharya himself. What is in his original sloka? It is the couplet which says, Sloka hardhenu prabhakshami aduktam granthakativi brahma sattam jagat mithya jiva brahma iva napara. Okay? What does it mean? It means that in half a verse, I shall summarize what has been written in millions of scriptures. Brahma alone is real, the universe is unreal, and the individual soul is non-different from the Supreme Brahma. Okay? From the very outset, my Thakur's argument is demonstrably flawed. basing his premise entirely on a mere 4 words without taking into consideration the complete verse, my Thakur hastily concluded that since Shankaracharya is part of the world and the world is an illusion or mitha, Shankaracharya's words must also be untrue. However, the verse explicitly states, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. The individual soul is none other than Brahma itself. Shankaracharya is not the material world. He is the Jiva, the living soul, as we all are. Since the Jiva is essentially Brahma, and Brahma is essentially the ultimate truth, the Shatta, the very angle from which my Thakur sought to dismiss Shankaracharya is immediately invalidated. Understood? But you should keep in mind, because it is crucial to note, that these ideas were not originally my Thakur's. He had absorbed what his Mama Hirambanath has told him. My Thakur viewed Hirambanath as a scholar of profound wisdom, and like a plain and simple little boy, my Thakur simply accepted his uncle's words in innocent faith. That's the tragedy. Here, we must delve into what Shankaracharya genuinely means by Shatta or truth and Mitha or illusion. The word Shatta finds its origin in Shad, a concept that denotes a changeless, eternal reality. Now, in philosophical discussions, terms such as hermeneutics, epistemology, etymology, ontology, these words assume profound significance. So, it's paramount to understand what does Shatta truly mean and what does Mitha mean. Shatta comes from the word Shad, I have told. Now, Shad means which is unbreakable, elementary, fundamental, eternal, which don't have to borrow anything from any other thing or substance. So, Brahma is Shad. In the 16th slok of the 2nd chapter in Gita, we find Na shata vidyate bhava, na bhava vidyate shata, ubhayaropi, drishto hantos tanayasta tattva darshivi. It means the unreal possesses no enduring existence, whereas the real can never cease to be. Herein lies the profound essence of the Shad and the Ashad. According to the Taittiriya Upanishad, the supreme reality is defined as Shattam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, truth, knowledge and infinity. Conversely, the Tejobindu Upanishad also illuminates the divine or the Brahma as Shat Chit Anandam Brahma, truth, consciousness and bliss. In both of these sacred definitions, the word Shattam, which means Shad, signifies absolute permanence and timeless eternity. The word Shada, eternal, same meaning. The absolute Shatta, thus from the philosophical platform, is indivisible. That is, it is not divisible into something else. It is a concept or a term or a reality that cannot be deduced, inferred, or logically traced back to something else. It signifies that this concept Shad is foundational or unique, standing entirely on its own rather than being translated into or broken down into anything other, referring to an absolute basic truth or phenomenal reality that cannot be explained or reduced to any other lower level processes or components. Understood? In the same fashion, in order to truly grasp what Shankaracharya means by mitha or unreal, a profound understanding of the Adhyasha Bhashya is absolutely essential. Now, you have heard of Adhyasha Bhashya? Yes. Okay. At the very commencement of his commentary on the Brahma Sutras, Shankaracharya crafts a profound introductory essay known as the Adhyasha Bhashya. To truly grasp Shankaracharya's philosophy, one must first unpack the word Adhyasha, which is commonly translated as superimposition. Etymologically, Odhasha is derived from the roots odhi, meaning on top of, and asha, meaning to place. Literally, it implies placing one thing on top of another. This is a literal interpretation. But in its true conceptual essence, Odhasha means mistaking one thing for another. Understood? This is perfectly illustrated by Advaita Vedanta's famous metaphor of the rope and the snake. You know it, Rajjute Sarpabhram, where in the dim light one mistakenly perceives the harmless rope as a snake. It is through this lens of Odhasha that we can understand what Shankaracharya truly means when he labels the world as mithya, or illusion, or untruth. Now, when it is said that the world is mithya, it does not mean the world is a sheer unreality or a figment of imagination. Rather, it means that we fail to perceive the world in its true essential nature, viewing it as something else entirely. For instance, if someone asks who you are, your immediate response might be to point to your body. Yet this body is ephemeral. No, it does not last forever. By the strict definition of absolute truth, which must be eternal and unchanging, the body is mithya. It doesn't mean that the body is unreal. It is just a superimposition. It is a temporary vessel of a few decades, superimposed upon the eternal timeless Atma residing within you. Isn't it? Understood? This misidentification is Odhasha. This is what constitutes the untruth, according to Shankaracharya. Therefore, Advaita Vedanta does not dismiss the world as non-existent in the way it is often colloquially misunderstood. Shankaracharya begins his Odhasha Bhashya with the celebrated declaration, Jushma Tasmat Pratyaya Gocharaya Vishaya Vishayena Tamo Prakashavat Viruddha Svabhaya Itara Bhavanupapatti. Shankaracharya, even in his definition of Odhasha or Mithya, says, it is nothing but Sritirupa Paratra Purvadishtava Bhasha. Here, Mithya or Odhasha is described as a cognitive phenomenon, an error in our awareness. Driven by past impressions and memories, our consciousness projects an illusion that veils the true nature of reality. Understood? For example, while the Atma is immortal, the body is inherently mortal. Yet, due to this profound superimposition, we identify so completely and seamlessly with our physical bodies that we become bound by the fear of death. So, there are two dimensions, then, in which my Thakur's reasoning falls short. The first lies in my Thakur's incomplete knowledge of the verse, which leads him to falsely accuse Shankaracharya. Second, the meaning that my Thakur tries to assign to the word mithya or unreal is not at all what Shankaracharya intended to convey. Understood? Okay. So much for the trivial and small theoretical quibbles and, say, intellectual hair splitting, as you asked me and wanted to know from me. Now, I wish to share with you a few thoughts regarding my Thakur's true deep spiritual philosophy. A philosophy that to me is a million times more subtle, profound and sublime than not just Advaita Vedanta, but any spiritual theory you can find here. There simply cannot be a concept more sophisticated and profound than this particular line of thought from my Thakur. Okay, let me elaborate. The supreme position where Advaita Vedanta places Brahma, my Thakur, you may say, gives the same status to the great void or the Mahashunya. But there's a very deep and fundamental difference between the two concepts. Brahma of Advaita Vedanta in one side and Mahashunya of my Thakur on the other side. While Advaita Vedanta, in its ultimate realization, accepts a singular absolute entity named Brahma, the concept my Thakur proclaims in this context is the concept of the Mahashunya. It is, impossible to encounter in any other spiritual philosophy this particular line of thought of my Thakur. Even from the standpoint of pure logic, my Thakur's thought shines so brilliantly that one cannot help but be struck with awe. According to my Thakur, since we have emerged from the Mahashunya, we can palpably feel its undeniable, absolute influence in every single object. Now, in one of his discourses, my Thakur says, the recording of the speech is right here. Give me that phone, hand it over. That mobile phone with Tom and Jerry case, that one is. Give me. Okay. Let me find it. Okay, I have got it. Now, this is what my Thakur says. I am playing it.
দেহযন্ত্রের বিচার করতে গিয়ে এখানকার সবাই হিমশিম খেয়ে যাচ্ছে। যার এই খেলা, যেই প্রকৃতির থেকে এই খেলা চলছে, সেটাও তার তরফ থেকে সেটাও বেশ খেয়াল করেই চলছে, সেটাও খেয়াল করেই চলছে যাতে এক না বসায়, তার সৃষ্ট বস্তু হল তার মহান দৃষ্টান্ত। আগেই বলেছি, সৃষ্ট বস্তুর কোন বস্তুকে খুঁজতে গেলে নিখোঁজ এক পাবে না। চাই সমস্ত ইন্দ্রিয়কে তছনছ করে খুঁজলেও এক খুঁজে পাবে না। এক না খুঁজে পাওয়ার লাক্স অফ দৃষ্টান্ত রয়েছে, এক না খুঁজে পাওয়ার লাক্স অফ দৃষ্টান্ত রয়েছে। তবে সে প্রতি মুহূর্তে যে আমরা যে ফাঁকা থেকে এসেছি, শূন্যের থেকে এসেছি, প্রতি বস্তুতে সে নিজেকে প্রকাশ করছে, প্রতি বস্তুতে, প্রতি অণুতে সে নিজেকে প্রকাশ করছে। সেখানে এক ধরতে যাবে কেন? শূন্যকে এক ধরতে যাবে কেন? শূন্য চিরকালই শূন্য, ফাঁকা চিরকালই ফাঁকা, ফাঁকার আর কোন বর্ণনা চলে না। কিন্তু সেখানে হলো সমস্যা। সমস্যা আমাদের কোথায়? সেখানে। দ্বন্দ্ব আমাদের কোথায়? সেখানেই আমাদের চিন্তা। কিন্তু তবু সুদূর থেকে প্রকৃতি বলছে, প্রকৃতির সমস্ত সৃষ্টিতত্ত্বে, প্রকৃতির সমস্ত বিষয়বস্তুর সৃষ্টিতত্ত্বের একটা ইঙ্গিত তার সৃষ্টির মাধ্যমে আমরা পাচ্ছি। সেটা হলো বোধ, বিবেক যাকে বলি, যেটা বোধ। সেই বোধেও সে তো আগেই বলেছি, বোধ আছে। এই বোধ আছে না নেই, ফাঁকা। সেই বোধ কিন্তু ফাঁকারই, আগেই বুঝতে হবে সেই বোধ ফাঁকারই বোধ। এটা বুঝে নিতে হবে। সেই যে বোধ চলছে তোমার, এটা ফাঁকারই বোধ, শূন্যেরই বোধ। বোধও শূন্য, বোধও ফাঁকা, ফাঁকারই বোধ, ফাঁকারই শূন্য। তবু প্রকৃতি বলছেন, তবু বললেন এই বোধ নিয়ে তোমাদের অগ্রসর হতে হবে। যতক্ষণ না পর্যন্ত এই বোধের শেষ না পাবে, এই বোধের সীমানা খুঁজে না পাবে, ততক্ষণ পর্যন্ত তোমাদের এগিয়ে যেতে হবে। তার আগ পর্যন্ত তোমাদের কোনো কথা চলবে না। আগে দেখো, আগে তাকে বোঝো, সেটাকে বোঝো, তারপরে হবে তোমাদের কথা। সে তো বলছেন আমি আছি, তাহলে পরিষ্কার হয়ে যেত। সে বলছেন আমি আছি, আবার বলছেন আমি নাই। মহাকাশ বলছে না আমি আছি, মহাকাশ বলছেন আমি নাই। আমরা এখন যা বুঝছি, আমরা সৃষ্ট বস্তু হয়ে যা বুঝছি, কিন্তু তবু আমাদের সেই পথ বেছে নিতে হবে। কোথায় এর শেষ, কোথায় এর সীমানা, কোথায় এর সুরাহা। আমরা সেই সুরের এর দিকে এগিয়ে যাচ্ছি, সেই সুরধ্বনিকে নিয়ে। ব্যাস।
What a wonderful, so excellent, no? So profound. My Thakur says here that when it comes to analyzing the mechanism of the bodily instrument, everyone here finds themselves utterly overwhelmed. Nature, from whose end this entire cosmic play is orchestrated, is itself meticulously careful to ensure that a definitive one is never established. Look, here my Thakur differs from the Advaita Vedanta philosophy. My Thakur says the creation stands as the grandest testament to this. As I have said before, you have noticed, if you set out to search for the ultimate reality of any object, you end up getting lost. You will never arrive at a definitive one. Isn't it? Understood? Even if you ransack all your senses in this search, you will not find the one, the ultimate one. There are millions of examples of this failure to find the one. Because we have emerged from the vast openness, from the Mahashunno, the great void, it expresses itself in every object, in every single atom. Why then try to grasp the void as one? Thakur asks. Why must the void be quantified as one? The void is eternally the void. The emptiness is eternally empty. Emptiness admits no further description. Understood? My Thakur further says, nature implies a profound truth through the genesis of all her creation, a hint we receive through her very handiwork. That hint is, according to Thakur, consciousness, or you may call the intellect or the conscience. But try to realize this, that consciousness too belongs to the Mahashunno itself. The awareness operating within you is the awareness of the emptiness, the consciousness of the void. Yet nature insists that you must forge ahead with this very consciousness. Until you reach the absolute end of this awareness, until you discover the ultimate boundaries of this consciousness, you must keep moving forward. Before that, no arguments or assertions will hold. First behold, first understand it, and only then shall you speak. This is what my Thakur wants to say. Mahashunno is so unique in its position that it does not claim I exist, nor does it claim I do not exist. The Mahashunno does not say I am, nor does it say I am not. This is merely what we perceive, looking at it as created entities. Yet, we must choose that path to find where it ends, where its boundary lies, where its resolution abides. Understood? Carried by that primordial resonance, we are moving steadily forward that ultimate harmony. Now, while Shankaracharya unconditionally accepts the ultimate spiritual culmination, Ekamadvitiyam, the absolute one, the Brahma, my Thakur, with profound objectivity and rigorous logic, introduces a grounded, fiercely logical caveat in which he declares that the hour for that ultimate dissolution is not yet upon us. So beautiful. By prescribing a means to preserve the spark and continuity of consciousness at the very summit of existence, my Thakur unveils a highly rational design behind creation, a vision sublime and entirely unmatched by any conventional religious or spiritual philosophy on this planet. Isn't it?